Well, greetings, everyone. Welcome to another one of our Free Friday community classes here on the YouTubes. I post classes pretty much every single Friday, covering a variety of topics from spiritual and clinical herbalism to medicine crafting to occult botany to herb magic to plant folklore and all kinds of other stuff too. So if you're interested in that kind of stuff, hit the subscribe button. Let me know you're out there. I'll give you a little ding every time we put a new class up. This week, we are going to be talking about mugwort. Folks in my Patreon community, we just are wrapping up a month long, a full lunar cycle sit with this incredible plant. And so in this week's class, I'm going to share with you just a drop from the bucket, 10% of what we covered, what we talked about in this journey, but it's some of the most interesting stuff about this incredible, mysterious, somewhat misunderstood plant, right? So let's get into it. First, Artemisia vulgaris, a gentle reminder that scientific names can be a beautiful way to intone, to mantra, to invoke, to sing to the plant spirits, whether they be Latin or German or French, doesn't matter. Uh, they're just different enough that they will challenge our brain in some interesting ways, drop us into a gently altered state of consciousness, and help us connect more to the green realm and to the plant spirit. So we can work with these scientific names like Artemisia vulgaris in song, in chanting, in automatic writing, in sigil crafting, whatever. It's very, very cool. So Artemisia vulgaris, mugwort, common mugwort, is a revered herb from the Asteraceae family, right? This is part of the big ol' aster family, sharing familial connections with, I don't know, 23,000 some odd other plants. This is a big family, right? Plants, shrubs, trees throughout the world. Some of the close relatives, familial close relatives to mugwort that you've probably heard of include sagebrush, that's Artemisia tridentata, right? Wormwood, burdock, sunflower, echinacea, dandelion, ragweed, marigold. It's a big family, right? And chrysanthemum. Bonus points if you know enough about plants to visualize some of the ones that I just rattled off, and if you can think about something that botanically, sort of through their expression of their body form, they have in common, bonus points. The genus name for mugwort and around 300 other plants, Artemisia, was of course given by the famed botanist Carl Linnaeus in 1753. Lots of people think that the Artemisia genus name comes from the great goddess Diana, Artemis, right? And I tend to agree with that. There's a possibility that the name came from Artemisia II of Cara, somebody who historically may have had a little bit more relevance to Carl Linnaeus, but I like the Diana stuff more, right? If you know a bit about her folklore, and as we start exploring a bit about mugwort, it all just clicks in so beautifully. So the common and folk name of mugwort has a long and varied etymology. One of the most attested would be the Nine Herbs charm from the Lacnunga, which references mugwort as mugwort. My Old English is terrible, so please don't drag me for it. This is a reflex etymologists and scholars are quite confident about. And when I see that kind of confidence, I get really excited because it means that we have been addressing and invoking and working with this plant under that same magical name for a very, very long time. From there, the name goes through stages of folk etymology, whereby the Anglo-Saxon name is changed to more familiar or more effortlessly pronounced names simply by being shared around. Like one person tells one person, they go back to their group of people and they say it, and the name gets slightly adjusted to fit their tongue or their phonetics a little better. So that name has kind of been passed around, but somehow we stay really, really close to this particular plant, which is very cool. Some of the other folk names that you'll find out there around mugwort include Byblos, which is a little bit more of a magical name, Cingulum Sancte Johannes, the cingulum or belt of St. John, St. John's plant, felon herb, Dunamurwa, muggins, sailor's tobacco, motherwort, right? Various iterations of mugwort. So Artemisias vulgaris, aster family, Artemisia genus, the energetics of this plant are bitter and warm. If you know much about plant energetics and our bitter allies, you know that a warm bitter plant is a rare thing to find. So this is really good plant to take note of for that region. The actions are emmenagogue, antispasmodic, digestive bitter, diuretic and diaphoretic, nervine, choleric, and slightly narcotic. And in my opinion, the way that I've listed these herbal actions out are like most pronounced to least pronounced. So emmenagogue being pretty much the most pronounced action of this plant, and the narcotic effect being mild at best, and that's only in larger doses. We work with these beautiful leaves in medicine and magic that are green, kind of a soft green on top, you can see in the image, and then a silvery, downy lunar color underneath, right? Which is very good. Contraindications because of the emmenagogue and the digestive bitter effects during pregnancy, or for folks dealing with heavy periods for any kind of reason. This is not maybe the herb to work with. So warm bitter tonic. So when we're dealing with formulating digestive bitters, and so many of the bitter herbs tend to be cold, even borderline refrigerant or in the neutral category, and we want to warm our formula up a little bit, the tiniest little bit of mugwort can be very, very effective. Personally, I lean in favor of Angelica archangelica or Angelica sinensis, one of the angelicas, to warm a bitter formula. But if you have a connection with this plant and you know what moderation is in a formula, then you certainly can bring some mugwort in. This is a fantastic blood mover. Mugwort will get into the tissues, get into the capillary beds, and really kind of open things up. There's this really beautiful opening energy for the joints, for the flow of blood. And that openness allows the body to purge the tissues, to kind of flush them, right? And that can be helpful in all kinds of situations like rheumatism, arthritis, gout, kind of organic injuries to the tissues. My favorite way to get that effect is through moxibustion, right? Which is a technique from traditional Chinese Taoist medicine, and most acupuncturists, right, will do a little moxa. So if you work with an acupuncturist and you've never experienced moxibustion before, next time you have a session, ask them to show you what it's like. It's very lovely. Or a warm compress, like a nice warm tea of mugwort, can be wrapped around the affected area to bring warmth and movement and open and purgation to those areas. As a regulator of menstruation, remember the emmenagogue properties. That's a very forceful downward pushing energy in the body because of the combination of emmenagogue warmth and digestive bitterness. So when folks are dealing with delayed periods that aren't kind of kicking on, or when the period is really scanty, it doesn't feel like it's going to resolve completely, or when there are symptoms of a cold menstrual, like a menstrual cycle, and meaning that there can be a dull ache and the things just aren't, again, they're not happening, they're not resolving. Mugwort is not necessarily my go-to herb for that, but certainly an herb that I'm going to bring into some formulas in moderation, and other things like, again, compresses or foot soaks, or moxa, right? It's very helpful. And last but not least, I do work quite extensively with mugwort for tremors and tics, for neurological issues where there is an excess buzz or a ticking reaction in the nervous system. I'm going to formulate mugwort with other herbs to harmonize some of the more intense energies of this plant, but still so effective and so helpful. So having discussed just a little bit of the medicine, I want to focus on the magic. And we're going to do that by beginning with the bit from the Nine Herbs Charm of the Laknunga, celebrating mugwort. Remember, mugwort, what you brought to pass, what you readied at Regenmeld. You're called Una, that most ancient plant. You defeat 3, you defeat 30, you defeat venom, you defeat air illness, you defeat the horror who stalks the land. So a really beautiful attestation to the efficacy of this herb for anti-venom effects, for defeating air illness, which is probably likened to the pernicious evil influences we see in Taoist herbalism, common colds. There's enough of a diaphoretic and bitter energy to this herb that I certainly could see mugwort being a go-to, folk remedy for colds and flus. You defeat the horror who stalks the land. Lots of interpretations of that, but this is where I lean into that protective, talismanic aspect of this particular plant spirit. One really important takeaway from this stanza of the Laknunga, and all bits of the Laknunga, is please pay special attention to the way that mugwort is addressed, right? The author or authors are not saying, remember humans, mugwort did this stuff and it's a great plant and you should use it for the following things. This is not the sentiment. This is not the mood, and it's not the language, right? When we look at these ancient animistic land-based cultures, language is incredibly important. What you say is real, right? Words are things, thoughts are things. And so what we see here, remember mugwort, what you brought to pass, what you readied at Regenmeld, probably a location, a place. You are called Una, that most ancient plant. You defeated, you defeat, you defeat. Mugwort is addressed as a person in a supplicatory manner, following very consistent Indo-European styles of invocation and petition, whereby plants are called by several names. Here we have mugwort, here we have a savior at Regenmeld, here we have Una, here we have the one who defeats air illness. We have virtues extolled or flattery given for things done in the past. This is very common in Indo-European pagan prayer, and we see it here in the 9 herb charms beautifully. But the takeaway here is how mugwort is addressed as a person, as a spirit, as a conscious, aware, living, wise entity that can be worked with through prayer, through petition. The Laknunga 9 herbs charm is not necessarily written in a way that implies formulation, right? There are, of course, aspects of this where it would be recited over someone several times or over an herbal formula, but many of the things that show up in Herbarium 5, in Bald's Leech book, in Laknunga, show us that even without the physical presence of the plants, they can be invoked spiritually. So I'm going to leave that there. A little bit of a tangent, sidebar. That's what you get in my classes. So let's get into some magic, shall we? Planet, pretty much broadly accepted as a Venusian herb, but Paul Byral says Neptune, right? He always kind of goes off his own direction. Zodiac, Virgo, Libra, and Scorpio from Paul Sadir. The elements of Earth from Paul Sadir, Air, Scott Cunningham. And invocatories, deities or spirits, gods or heroes related to Artemis and Diana, of course, and all deities of the moon. All lunar deities and lunar spirits. So a couple bits here. We see a lot in the charms around mugwort that mugwort grows in stony outcrops. It grows kind of along the edges of a village in places that are a little disturbed, that are kind of a little bit roughshod. And so we see in the lore folks passing that last outcrop before venturing into the unknown from their village and plucking a wee bit of mugwort and carrying that with them as a talisman, as an amulet to protect them on their journeys, to help them return home safe. So mugwort as an ally for journeying, for venturing out. We can take this literally to mean going on physical journeys, leaving our comfortable spaces and going out into the world. But we can also look at the more psycho-spiritual aspect of journeying, of spirit flight, of creative visualization, of journeying into otherworldly realms through ritual, right? That mugwort acts as an incredible ally, not only to protect us in those workings, but to facilitate them, right? So mugwort sort of opens the ways and keeps us safe while we use those open gates to go out and come back in. And we'll talk about that a little bit more as we go on. I mentioned earlier the influence of evil and malefic cunning that mugwort is a very, very protective ally. Now, I do not see or experience mugwort being a protective ally generally, right? This is not a plant spirit for me that any random person can pick up and burn or carry and get all of that hedge of protection, that silvery green protective energy from mugwort. Not my experience. Mugwort protects those who do the work. So mugwort is more likely to protect folks who are in some kind of relationship with the plant. They're stewarding the plant. They've journeyed with the plant. They've done, plant spirit work with the mugwort plant. Then the initiation happens and the protection is there and it's palpable, right? This is not an herb like so many other herbs that somebody can just pick up and benefit from. Mugwort kind of makes us put some work in, which is not uncommon for some of these more established, cunning herbs, folkloric herbs of magic. So consider that we have to put a little work in before we can reap the benefits of this plant. In the Nine Herbs Charm, mugwort is called Una, the mother of all plants, right? So we also look at mugwort as being an initiatory ally, the first of all plants, the mother of all plants. Now, to be fair, in the very next verse, plantain, Plantago major or Plantago lanceolata, we're not really sure, known as waybread in the Nine Herbs Charm, is also called the mother of all herbs. So we have to take it lightly. But for me, mugwort, Una, mother of all plants, tells us that mugwort has a special relationship with the green realm, with all plants, right? As a mother of all plants, mugwort could act as teacher or guide or leader or initiator or benefactor or patroness to all of the other plant spirits, acting as a teacher to them. So when we connect with this herb, we're actually connecting with an herb that can easily connect us further with other plants that we can be working with, or other plant familiars or allies that could be a little more harmonized to the work that we are doing and to the individuals that we are. So mugwort is an incredible gate opener, an incredible initiating herb, and that's really how I see this plant. And for the month-long plant spirit journey we just did with mugwort, that was very much our sorceress focus, was on mugwort as the giver of plant spirit wisdom, the changer of the mind and the heart to perceive the green realm, right? And that's along the rituals and the meditations we did. Some of the more contemporary cunning lore around mugwort would be making a strong tea around the full moon, of course, because this is a very lunar herb, to wash your divination tools. Wash your crystal balls, wash your pendulums, whatever. Of course, if you work with oracle cards or whatever, you'll have to get creative, maybe wash them in the smoke of smoldering mugwort rather than a liquid. But a very beautiful way to bless and consecrate your divinatory tools. And I want to wrap up with the thing that everybody thinks about with mugwort, which is dreams. Mugwort to inspire dreams, to sharpen dreams as a dream incubator. This is not established in the folklore that I know anywhere. So this is an important thing because it reminds us that the plants are alive, that green sorcery is happening now, that this work is not prophetic. It's not textual. It's not something that got, written down at one point and now we all have to follow what was written forever and ever. No. The plants are alive. They're alive just like you and I are. They evolve, they develop, they change, they unfold, they continue to reveal things to us that we're capable of dealing with now that maybe wasn't appropriate for us 1,000 years ago. And so the revelatory nature of plants is real. This is why for folks who walk a plant spirit path, who do green sorcery or work in more spiritual herbal contexts, the value placed on green gnosis that can be verified, of course, in one way or another by uh, whether it's clinical or empirical or folkloric information, is valued so much because we understand that if plants are persons, they have the ability to teach us personally how we can be working with them, right? Otherwise, the whole of animism is pointless, and doing work from a spiritual perspective is pointless, right? Plants are just things, they're mechanic, uh, and that's just not how it is. So the dream aspect of mugwort is not old, it's new, and it is undeniably something that mugwort inspires in so many people and teaches us and reinforces over and over and over again. So um, work with mugwort as an ally for dreaming, of dream incubation, of doing dreamtime work, whether that's going out in spirit flight or working on your inner visionary faculties, or literally while you are asleep dreaming, however that manifests for you, knowing that this is a teaching that is current. This is a way that mugwort is working with you and I right now. For what we are as a person and as a people and as a group. And to me, that's pretty damn cool, right? So hopefully you learned a couple things about mugwort you didn't know and got some inspiration to go sit with this incredible plant. My time with this plant over the last month has been just wild. So good, so many bits of download and revelation, and so many cool things lined up for me working with mugwort. A plant I've always been deeply connected to, but things really went to a whole new level this month. So if you are interested in joining us for our next plant spirit journey, we start one just after the new moon every single month. There's some details in the video info below. And if you have any questions, of course, you can reach out and ask me. Thanks very much for joining us. All hail Mighty Mugwort. See you next time.